welcome to another episode of Baja Tales and Travels. Real people, real stories, real Baja. Today, I'm excited to have as our guest Mark Rogers, author of Uppercut, a
Mm.
memoir about moving to Mexico. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about your background and
Well, in this area of my story, it probably would start like 2009 when
mhm,
I met Sophie in L.A.
your beautiful wife.
Yeah, my beautiful wife Sophie, who I liked. One of the people, one of the reviewers of the book said you're probably gonna get a crush on Sophie reading this book, you know. But so in 2009 we met, and I was doing pretty well as a senior editor at a magazine out of New York. I was the California editor,
Hmm.
and they filed for bankruptcy, and my job was over. I was done.
Oh, wow.
So 3 months after meeting Sophie, all of a sudden I was on unemployment in L.A.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Nice way to start off a relationship, right?
yeah. In fact, I actually had a moment where we were driving through the In and Out, and I said, "Baby, you didn't sign up for this. And if you want to
Mhm.
bail, you can bail. I'll understand. Maybe we'll pick it up later." She said, "No, no, I'm in it. I'm in it for the long haul. And she said at the end, she said, "Don't play with my heart." So anyway, so we tried to make a go of it in L.A., freelance work and stuff like that, but we were not getting anywhere.
Hmm.
Actually we were getting anywhere. We are going down
Oh,
real fast.
yeah.
And at that time, Sophie had a daughter living in Tijuana, and the daughter had two very young boys, and they were struggling worse than us. So the idea was, okay, why don't we move down to Tijuana? Coalesce as a family.
Hmm.
We help each other and make a new go of it. But the thing is, we didn't. I didn't know I would get any kind of freelance opportunities in Mexico. So we were going there, a real Hail Mary type situation,
Wow.
where we might go there and maybe I'd have to open up a taco stand or something, which I wouldn't mind, but it was like that.
Uh-huh.
And the the craziest, dumbest thing either one of us ever did was about 3 weeks before we moved to Tijuana. We had a family member who had been deported, a guy, a man, and he had been deported to Tijuana from L.A. And our granddaughter was back in L.A. with no parent,
Hmm.
and he begged us to sneak him across the border in our car.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know why I thought if he got caught, that would be the end of it. They would just send him back, and they would just leave
And
us
you'd be
be.
okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd be okay. That wasn't the case. And well, a few things. We go to the border. He presents his green card. Turned out it was a green card from a known felon.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
nice,
right,
nice,
right. So
nice.
that was the jig was up right away. They handcuffed us, took us into detention. Um, I was in detention for 24 hours. Sophie was in
Wow.
detention for 36 hours. And we were facing, while in detention, while in the cell with all kinds of meth heads and everything, we were facing, I was facing a 20,000, no, $200,000 fine and 20 years in jail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And now you're all split up too, right? I
Yeah, we're
mean,
split up. I don't know where Sophie is. They're giving me conflicting information.
wow.
Uh, um, I'm in with people who are pretty rough crowd, and but they sprung me in 24 hours. Luckily, they sprung her, took away her green card, and so now we were up against the wall before we did this. Now we're now we're now things are looking even worse. But we still make the trip to Tijuana.
But didn't they take your car away
They
too?
took my car away for a year. For a year.
Wow.
They took Sophie's green card for, geez, it must have been a year and a half. We
Wow.
had to get a lawyer and go to court and everything else. But anyway, so then we moved to, well, there's the story goes on. We do this beautiful thing, trying to reunite the father with our granddaughter. He's deported back, then he sneaks across the border. But 2 years later, or maybe 3 years later, we learned that he's abusing her, physically abusing her, not
Oh.
sexually, but physically abusing her. And she comes down to visit us, and she says, "No, yeah, he's beating me and everything else." So we say you can stay here with us. So now now we have international kidnapping charges filed against us.
Wow.
So we're dealing with that, and I'm thinking that he's going to send cholos down from Tijuana to our house to get his daughter back, and in the meantime, who knows what'll happen? And but we prevailed. You know, she stayed with us for like 2 years, and we did a quinceañera with her, and I got to dance with her, and
Oh,
so that was fine. But the irony keeps going because after 2 years, she decides she misses the Instagram life of L.A. and she goes back to her father.
oh no.
Yeah,
Wow.
and then the story gets even crazier because then the father gets drunk at Fourth of July, blows his hand off with a quarter pound of dynamite, a firecracker, and he blames his daughter because she's a witch. So this story just kept on going around in circles and circles and circles. But anyway, so now we're in Rosarito, and one night, 3 o'clock in the morning, Sophie wakes up, and she's crying, and I said, "Well, hey, baby, what's up? What's wrong?" She goes, "I don't have a house, and I really don't think my children will take care of me. I don't think they're going to really come through for me." But I said, well, "Okay, well, let's buy land and buy a house and
Mhm.
build a house, you know." So we bought 3 lots up in Rosarito, up the Poplar there.
Now that could be quite a challenge here,
Oh, that's a
right?
challenge too, and that was a challenge. But the funny thing, there wasn't a challenge. It's the financial end of it, because you could buy a lot for $600 down
Hmm.
and a payment of $100. So we bought 3 lots.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and
Hmm. Got a little compound going there.
yeah, the compound. Yeah, actually, there was like 2 houses we built. We built a house for our daughter and her kids, and then we built a guest house. And Sophie, I like to call her the most beautiful contractor in Mexico because she bought a trailer, knocked off the top of the trailer, and put a second floor on it, and made a little guest house that can sleep like 6 people.
A two-story
Yeah, 2 story.
trailer.
Yeah,
That
and
I don't think I've ever heard about
there's
that.
pictures of her, up there with with power tools and putting the studs together and everything else. But again, in Mexico, they seem to make a clear path for if you want to buy property and you want to build a house. Unlike the United States,
Mm-hmm.
you can do it as long as you can even maintain the minimum payments. Like I said, my pace was $100.
Now I know that,
Yeah,
I notice a lot of, you'll be driving around, you'll see a lot of homes that start, because every time I see a truck with cinder blocks, I go, there's a new house coming along.
yeah.
So, I mean, how difficult is it to actually build a house down here?
Well, we did some of the labor, but
Mm-hmm.
also labor is cheap down here, or
Mm-hmm.
at least it was cheap like about 10 years ago. It might be more expensive now, but we would do like a lot of I don't a lot of the digging the trenches or painting the walls and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But we didn't do the electrical work or the
Right.
tile work and stuff like that. But it's basically I was going back a little bit. The freelance jobs did come to me, and they actually came more and more from USA Today.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
USA Today was hiring me to write all these stories and stuff.
So you were working as a travel journalist,
Yeah,
right?
travel journalist, right?
Okay.
So I would still travel out of San Diego, out of Tijuana,
Mm-hmm.
to do these various stories, and so the money was coming in, but every time I get a freelance check, Sophie and I would drive over to. I'm looking this way because Sophie's sitting over there, but we drive down to Home Depot and say, okay, well let's order some cinder blocks and some plywood and some iron rods and
So money
yeah.
coming in is
Oh,
going right into the
yeah,
house, right?
yeah. But
Yeah.
what you mentioned about this, a lot of houses, you said
Yeah.
are half finished or they never get finished.
Right.
And it's very common to see even the finished houses to have a pile of cinder blocks in the driveway,
Yeah.
or like various stuff they use. But so anyway, that we were actually able to build our house, and uh, of course there were problems with contractors along the way.
Like what? Like what kind
Well,
of?
sometimes showing up drunk. While they're coming up to do an estimate, they might pee in the corner of the yard in full view of my wife.
Oh
Things like
wow.
that. Or a guy who did an estimate on the roof, and I think it was 3 feet by 4, and he said he's going to need 12 feet by 12 feet of plywood and he didn't know how to do the basic measurements,
Right.
or things like that. But then when they do come, we actually had breakfast one time in Rosarito, and the guy was kind of a chatty owner of the restaurant. and he's talking about building and stuff. He goes, they get paid so little that they think stealing is part of the job.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the quotes Sophie told me that makes people kind of uncomfortable is that a Mexican quote is, "If you don't cheat, you don't get ahead,"
Hmm.
which is the which is kind of
It is
a
sad. Yeah.
sad philosophy. But anyway, this guy more or less told us they're going to take stuff, and they do. If you're not looking, maybe you had 3 bags of cement, and then all of a sudden there's two, and there's if you looked in the guy back of the guy's car, there's probably a bag of cement in there.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that.
Mm.
I was recently talking to somebody that told me this similar kind of story where
Yeah.
the owner put a line of credit at one of the hardware stores, and then that guy continued to buy his
Oh,
rebar and his cinder blocks. They
okay.
all ended up building his house, so they
Okay.
didn't end
Yeah.
up where they were supposed to be. But
There
yeah,
was one guy we hired, and we had to go to his house for one reason or another to give him money or something. But did you ever hear that old Johnny Cash song, one part at a time? He's
no.
he's it's he's talking about working at the Ford factory in Detroit.
Oh,
I
okay.
built that car one part at a time that he
Oh,
could steal out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it might be a fender from a truck, and a dashboard from a sports car or whatever.
Right, right, right.
Well, Concho's house. Well, I shouldn't name him, but that guy's house was like that.
Uh
Every
huh. A little bit here.
mismatched tiles, mismatched windows,
Yeah, yeah.
all that kind of stuff that he had glommed from various jobs. But yeah, so as far as contractors, there were honest ones, but, and thank God we found them. And one thing we learned too is you never pay in advance.
Hmm.
And we had a problem with that. We heard a guy's sob story and paid him in advance, and we ended up paying him like $2,000 in advance.
People know that in the U.S., and I
Mm.
think they would know that here, but I think that's the problem. They tell really good stories sometimes, and your
Oh,
heart really wants to believe that they're going to be an honest person.
this guy would say, "Oh, I can't take care of my kids. I wake up at 3 in the morning and I walk out of the house. I walk up to the gas station and I just sit on the corner of the gas station and cry." He was
Yeah.
anyway.
I think you just have to be.
Yeah, his business card had a quote from the Bible, and I
Oh,
think some quote about Christ the carpenter, that kind of
uh-huh.
stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
you got to be careful.
yeah, you got to be careful, and we learned the hard way. And the most we would ever pay ahead would be like gas money to get to the job,
Uh-huh.
which might be like 200 pesos or something like
Right,
that.
right, right.
But yeah, so we went through a lot, and
I think you've had your fair share from, because I did buy this book and I
okay,
loved it. It was an
thank you.
easy read, a
Yeah,
little gritty sometimes,
yeah, yeah.
but I know you had a lot of um, stories about interactions with animals. And one of my favorites was your one about Rosalinda the
Oh, the
horse.
horse. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So tell me,
Uh, the-
share your story about Rosalinda the horse.
Yeah, that was interesting because Sophie came like I say in the book. Sophie has a big heart, and she came to me one day. She goes, "It's terrible. I saw a horse in town, and it's starving, and it's gonna die. So at that time we didn't even have a house. We had a lot. We had bought the lots with green
Hmm.
lots, right? And we were living in a little rental in town.
Hmm.
We said, okay, let's go buy the horse. You know. So we went there, and it was the poor thing. Its bones were sticking out from the
Mm.
sides. It had all these terrible ulcers on its legs.
Hmm.
Um, we brought alfalfa and we fed it through the fence. And then we noticed when it put its nose into the water bucket, there was not even any water.
Mm.
And this little guy came over and said, "Yeah, yeah, the guy bought the horse for his daughter, and she can't take care of it anymore." And I had the image of a young woman, a teenager, doing this with her phone all day,
Yeah.
and not having time to keep a horse from dying, right?
Right, right, right.
So they told us if we hadn't come to buy the horse, they were going to put a bullet in his head the next day and sell it to
Wow.
the butcher. So bits and pieces here and there, we finally did make the transaction, and we hired a groom in town in Popotla to take care of the horse for us. Well, at least quick care for it because we knew nothing about horses. Sophie had never had a horse. I never had a horse,
Wow.
and
And those are big animals to
I know
take
it's
care
it,
of.
you
Oh
know.
my God.
Sometimes I think Sophie and I are a little too impetuous. We make we make these decisions based on emotion sometimes,
Uh-huh.
and
Like
then
so many of us do
yeah,
that, you
and
know?
then the clear light of the next day, you think, oh, what the hell did we get ourselves into here? But we hired a guy, built a little corral for us
Uh-huh.
on, where the horse would be comfortable, and we bought a big tub for water. And there came a moment where we had to transport the horse to our property, and I was going to have to lead the horse, so I had to actually go to Wikipedia. I'd look up like a WikiHow, look up how do you lead a horse because I'd never done it before. And
You didn't get any help from the guy you bought it
no,
from?
he was ridiculous.
Oh.
It was a joke. Um, when he'd see us coming, he would start to scoop up the horse shit that he had neglected the week before.
Uh-huh.
Then he had a little brush about this big, and he was combing the horse like this. This
Even
big.
I know
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not going
yeah.
to work.
And he was trying to sell me his puppy. I didn't want the puppy. Then he wanted to sell me his dog. I didn't want the dog. Then he tried to sell me a pellet gun. And
Wow.
like I say in the book, I go, this whole poverty would be much more poignant if there wasn't a huge stack of Tecate cans right by the side of his house. So yeah, so we got rid of him, and then we said, okay, we got to take the responsibility. We got to get this horse to our property, and we went there in the morning. It was going to be a 2 mile
Oh, I
walk.
was just going to ask you how far it was.
Two
Two
miles, two
miles.
miles, yeah. And when we got there, there was just a person, a laborer passing by, and he says, "Oh, what are you doing? You're going to lead a horse? Oh, I'll help you. I'll do it." And for a moment, I was kind of disappointed because I wanted the challenge, right? And but I also knew that I didn't know how to do this, so uh, maybe help would be good.
Yeah.
And he grabbed the horse's reins, Rosalinda's reins, and she wouldn't move. She wouldn't budge. She just, and she's big.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, let me try. And I took the reins and I said, let's go. And he just started walking with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Must have liked you,
Yeah, I think,
obviously.
well, yeah, Sophie probably could have led the horse too, because basically, if they have a certain sense of imminent death, from these people or starvation, they probably saw us as some kind of savior to them,
Well,
maybe.
animals tend to, sense that too.
Yeah, I
They
think they're
send
much
a
more
signal.
complex and sensitive than we think,
Yeah. Yeah.
and or that we realize. And so then Sophie's in the car behind me, and I'm walking the horse. I'm thinking, hope he doesn't run away over the hill or whatever.
Drag you with them.
Yeah, because the Wikipedia said, don't let the reins get tangled in your hands, that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
that's right. You
Yeah, yeah,
dragged.
right, right. So one time she stopped, and I just pulled on the reins, and she just kept clopping along. So then we got her to the corral. She's happy, 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 happy. Drinking water like crazy, and then we realized we don't really we don't really have a situation here where we can care for a horse. We don't. It's just not practical.
And
I
you
got,
weren't living
we
there,
weren't even
so
living there, so we'd
so
drive up maybe every day
ah,
to feed her and be with her a little bit.
uh-huh.
But we had, it's not a long drive, but it's a 15-minute drive or whatever.
Yeah.
And so luckily we found a guy in the neighborhood who specializes in nursing horses back to health.
Hmm.
And at this time, I'd also read a book, uh, "The Man Who Talks to Horses." It's a memoir about the real life horse whisperer. And one of the
Hmm.
things he said in the book is that horses are very social animals. So now Rosalinda was going to be with a compassionate owner,
Mm-hmm.
but also with 5 other horses. And this guy who took her in said, "Oh, I think she's got one more foal in her." And which we shouldn't think that, but I guess he knew more than us because it must have been 1 year later, maybe we got the news that she had a foal.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, it's one of these again. We start off a little bit impetuous,
Mm-hmm.
and luckily, you know, everything doesn't go to hell. This story had a happy ending.
So, my normal question would be like, what kind of challenges did you experience moving to Mexico?
Oh,
Sounds like you've had more than your share.
yeah. There's probably a few I don't even. I'm not even touching on. But yeah,
Because
yeah.
I mean, because I always say, I've been here now 7 years. I love living here, but it's not for the faint of heart, and you really have to sort of do your legwork to figure out, how to navigate through the utilities and
Yeah.
everything else that's
What
here.
helps is that Sophie's Mexican national. She
Okay.
was born in Sonora, speaks excellent English. So that was like a buffer. If I had come down with, say, with a woman from New Jersey, we would really be in trouble, you know.
Do you
Yeah.
speak Spanish fluently?
No, I don't. And
Okay.
this is one of the things that Sophie is really on my ass about for a long time, and I don't think she's gonna smile about that one. But no, I don't speak Spanish.
I think that's the problem, living here in Baja, we're so close to the US. It's like
Yeah.
San Diego suburbs, and so many people here try to accommodate us,
Yeah.
trying to speak, and
English.
it's funny because a lot of times they're very, oh, I don't speak very good English, when they speak a whole lot better English than I could do Spanish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing, as a whole, expats should try to learn to speak a little bit more.
Yeah. It's one of the things I've neglected, and I feel bad about. But you know,
So now I understand that you've traveled, like, when you were doing your stuff for travel journalism for USA Today,
hmm.
you've traveled to like 56 countries.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It
so
was a
and you've
yeah.
written a lot of books. So your
Right.
books are out on Amazon, correct?
Yes.
What are some other notable
Well,
books you have out there?
the interesting thing that happened was I've been writing all my life, but I'd never published a novel. And
Hmm.
we moved down here, and in the space of 6 weeks, I sold four novels.
Wow.
Yeah, and two of them were from the '90s. It was weird. I've been trying to publish these novels for 20 years. And all of a sudden, everything was coming together.
And what were they about? I mean,
Well, one was about was a mystery in New Jersey. The other one was a children's book, young adult book. The other one was a very weird novel that I liked. Probably my first novel. It was about a prison system or a town that was like in decline, and in order to uh, bring pump money into the town, they had portable jail cells put in people's basements, and so they would actually take care of prisoners in their
no,
basements.
wait a minute. This is fiction.
Yes, fiction. But when
Okay.
it came out, people would call me and say, "Is this a true story?"
I was
You know,
gonna say,
because actually it's not that strange anymore. I mean,
you read stories
yeah,
about weird things that
yeah.
they find
But
in
there's
people's
a
homes.
variety of books. But
Wow.
then when we moved here, I was writing a lot, and with this one company, Neotext, they
S-
but they bought 8 books of mine over one
So,
weekend.
were you more inspired living down here, or more
I don't know. I
relaxed, or
don't
what is
know.
it?
Maybe I think it was the luck. I think a little bit of luck.
Oh,
Because well, because I'd been pounding on that door for a long time,
mm-hmm.
and I've been writing a long time. But I think I was inspired. I've written it's called a Tijuana Noir series,
And what's that
published
about?
published by Neotext. It's 8 books. Um,
Oh, it's a
it's a
series.
series with novels set in I think novels set in Rosarito and Tijuana, and
So these are true stories or
no,
fiction?
these are fiction.
Okay.
These are fiction, and like one might be the Iron Star, for example, is a story about the Haitian community in Mexico,
Oh,
in
okay.
Tijuana. I don't know if you know about that.
Well, seen, like, a lot of times driving by, you'll see them at the
Yeah, yeah,
immigration
a
area.
lot of Haitians were trying to get into the U.S. And at that time, I think it was Trump who foiled their entry into the U.S. So they were stalled out in Tijuana,
Hmm.
and they created their own community, but they were embraced by the Mexicans. And up
Hmm.
to that point, Mexicans didn't have a great relationship with black people. You didn't see a lot of black people down here,
Hmm.
but they took the Haitians to their heart because they're hardworking,
Oh.
responsible, and I've never heard a bad word about them from another Mexican. You
Huh.
know, that's why story. That was a story. Uh, I loosely based the story on us coming down here called TJ 99. 99 refers to your 99 weeks of unemployment.
Okay,
Yeah,
I brought your book out before
yeah,
you came over, and I was going back and I go, 99er, and I wasn't sure. I had to look that up because there's
yeah.
like, what's a 99er?
Well, it's a terrible day when you're 99 weeks of weeks or months. weeks, I think, of unemployment are finished.
So 52 weeks in the year. So they give you a couple of
Yeah,
years
a
of
couple of years. Yeah,
unemployment.
and that day when all of a sudden you were learning how to survive on this unemployment check, and now it's gone.
Now you got
Yeah, it's
nothing.
gone, and
Yeah.
you're not, uh, at that time I wasn't eligible for Social Security or anything like
Uh-huh.
that. Yeah, but yeah. So these books are based on that, and I think you're right. Living here, having some of these experiences, and sometimes it would be something very simple. Sophie and I'd be laying in bed at night, and she was looking at her phone, and a terrible image came on the phone of a dead body in the grass that had
Mm.
been in our neighborhood, 2 miles from a mile from our house, that had been partially eaten by dogs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was
A human body?
yeah, human body. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it was probably a cartel killing.
Uh-huh.
They dumped the body. But I went to bed with this. Excuse me, I just hit this. But
That's
I
good.
went to bed with this image in my mind, and the next morning it was the inciting incident for a whole new novel called Mockingbird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So sometimes you don't know where these things come from.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a no, okay. For example, I have a short story collection coming out in the fall from a little independent publisher uh, called Cowboy Jamboree Press, and the book is called Blackness 10 Times Black: Mexico Stories.
Oh,
And
so you've got more stories
oh
about
yeah,
Mexico.
these are short stories,
Okay.
but they've about 18 of 20 have been published in various literary magazines and stuff
Hmm.
like that. But and for sometimes a little thing that'll happen in the family will incite a story. Like we had a family member who wanted her son to get married, so she went up to a woman in the neighborhood and she said, "I'll pay for your nose job if you marry my son."
Oh, my God. Wow.
So that
Only in
that yeah,
Mexico.
that incited a whole story. Or we have a young teenage person in the family, a woman in the family, and she goes, I went on Match.com, and I was matched with my grandfather. He said he was young and he isn't, and he said, hey, and he just said he has money and he doesn't, you know.
Oh,
So
my
that was
God.
a like the inciting incident for another story,
Uh-huh.
where I take it, like where eventually she helps him find somebody, you know.
So you're actively writing. I
Yeah.
understand you're an artist too. So you do illustrations for your
Well,
books or or what?
I had two tracks when I was younger: art and literature,
Okay.
or writing. And yeah, I used to do illustrations for the New York Times and book review and stuff like that. And I was in shows and Pace Gallery and the Drawing
Hmm.
Center in Soho and all that stuff. But as I don't know why, but the writing kind of took over, and part of that was I like the democracy of a book. I
Hmm.
like the fact that somebody might pay, well, back in the day, $1 or $10, $20, whatever. And the art world, the little glimpse I had of it was a very elitist world,
Mm.
and I didn't cotton to it, and I think I withdrew. And one thing, I still make things and artwork and stuff, but it's writing now that I'm
Writing.
really
Yeah.
into.
Hmm.
And I want to thank you for bringing me here.
Hey, I really
Yeah,
appreciate your story.
yeah,
One of the things, this is the month of love, Valentine's.
mm,
I just want to give a little shout out to your wife. This is not only is it a very interesting story of your move to Mexico and the trials, but it's also very much a love story.
mm,
I mean, your wife, I can tell without even meeting her. That's why I told you when you were coming here.
yeah,
I feel like I know Sophie
mm,
personally. It's definitely a love story
yeah,
because you guys have been through a lot, and if you don't have some true love, I don't know how you would, get through all of that.
yeah.
So,
Thank you. Yeah,
again, thank you for
yeah,
sharing your story. This is what it's all about. And
yeah.
that's a wrap on this episode of Baja Tales and Travels. And I wanted to invite anybody, if you have an interesting tale or story that you would like to share, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to studio212team@gmail.com, and we'd love to feature you on a future episode. But until the next time, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie, sitting in our audience. And that's
Thank you,
it from,
Diego.
from Baja Tales and Travels. Wave to
Okay.
everybody.
Bye bye.